Hey guys, how's it going out there? Hope you guys are doing well. So today I'm going to be talking about a classic Disney film, which I would say in a lot of ways is a pretty underrated film, which is Princess and the Frog, which came out in '09. Which at this point it's been 15 years since that film came out, which is fucking crazy. It's been that long since this film came out. And I'll admit when this film came out, now I rewatched this film like about a year ago, and I vaguely remember watching it. I think I don't know when it came out or like shortly after, maybe in like 2010. But it was so long ago that like I did not remember pretty much any of it. So I rewatched it last year, and I have to say, after watching it, I think the film is a pretty good film. I think it's not the best of Disney's work. I don't think it's the worst. I mean, also considering what Disney's made in the last 15 years, I mean, I don't think this could even be considered in the lower or even the top of the worst it's made. I mean, I think it's a fairly decent film. I think it stands up. I don't think it's aged horribly. I don't think there's anything in the film that's like people look back on and think that it's just, there's a lot of issues with it. So it's held up pretty well. And really, the film, I think it just suffers from just really being kind of just bland in a lot of areas. I mean, Tiana, I think is she's a good character. I think she's one of the most attractive of the princesses, even today. I mean, especially when she has the blue dress on. I think she's one of the best. I think Tiana, as a character, she's good. Now, obviously, the elephant or the frog in the room is the issue. I think rightfully so, of Tiana really not being a human but being a frog for most of the film. And I get that I get that controversy, and the issue with this is Tiana in this film suffers from being the first and only to this day black Disney princess film. There has never been a black princess. I mean, there's been, Pocahontas, there's been Jasmine, but they're not, they're different races and ethnicities. They're not black. So obviously, Tiana being the first black princess, there's a lot of emphasis on that. And you do have the one group that say, well, it shouldn't matter if she's black or a human. You should be able to relate to the character regardless of what she is. But and I get that. I get that to a degree. But at the same time, it is, especially for Disney, because I don't know how, I think Disney at that point was like, they've been around 95 years. They've been around for a very long time. And I mean, obviously, for a very large portion of Disney's history, there was no way a black princess would have ever been made. And so the fact that, and even Disney made a big deal at the time of like, hey, this is our first black princess. This is our first like really black film we've made. So even Disney were aware of it. And I mean, also like it for this to be your first black princess, you would want to kind of make that a big importance. You'd want to like put a lot of work into that, but instead they just turn into a fraud for most of it. And it's like, I mean, at that point, like it kind of does beg the question of like, I mean, why does it really matter if she's black or not? And I think that's part of why Tiana, not that she's a forgotten princess, but she's really not talked about today like the other princesses. Like, I mean, even Snow White. I mean, I know the recent abysmal, remake with Rachel Zegler came out, but like even before that, like even today, even though Snow White came out like God, what fucking 60, 70 years ago, she still is relevant today as she was back then. Ariel came out in the 90s, 80s. Belle, Jasmine, like, all the princesses that came far before Tiana are still relevant today. And Tiana's that one princess that's just kind of there. I mean, people don't hate her, they don't dislike her, but she's just kind of forgotten. And I think part of that is the fact that she's just not really like a person for most of the film. She's a fraud. So, like, when you think of it, and I might be wrong about this, but I believe Tiana's the only princess that has actually not been a human for the majority of the film. Like, I mean, I think Tiana's only a human for, I think maybe 20% of the film. Like, I mean, she's only a human really the very beginning when she's a little girl, then a little bit when she's like older. And then for pretty much the solid 90%, the bulk of this film, she's just a fraud. And I feel like that kind of does like I wouldn't say damage people's perception of Tiana, but I think the fact that she isn't a human for most of it, I think that kind of does take a lot away from her kind of being a notable princess, because you can see the other films and the whole film is the princess, and you can you know quote things that they've said or done, actions and things. But with Tiana, she's a frog. I mean, there's not much to say really. There's not much you can really not much to say on that. And comparing her to princesses of the past or even currently, I can see why people wouldn't rank her that high just because of that. Because, like, well, I mean, she's really not even a princess till the end, literally the end of the film. But then she's also not even a human for most of it. So it was like, I mean, I guess she might count, but not really. So I think that has hurt Tiana as a character. I think that's part of why she's just not in the same. No, I wouldn't say the same caliber, but she's not in that same group of princesses like pretty much every other princess. Like even Moana, who's not a princess. I mean, she's still very relevant. I mean, granted, I know they're doing the sequels and all that, but nonetheless, she's still highly relevant. Um, but yeah, with Tiana, I feel like she's not a dislike character or a bad character. I think she's just a character that is kind of forgettable in a lot of ways, just because she spends most of the film as a frog, and then she's a human at the end, a human at the beginning, but in between there, she's not even a person. So I think people kind of look at that and they're like, whatever. And I think that's also probably a bit why black people back then and even now kind of really weren't, not that they weren't high on the film, but it's like, I mean, yeah, she's the first black princess, but I mean, what does that really matter when she's not even a human for fucking 95% of the film? Like, this is a waste of time. Like, why even make her black? Make her just some, one of the regular white, German princesses and call it a day, Yeah, so that is an aspect of the film that I think has kind of damaged Tiana as a character. But when it comes to the other characters, I feel like that's where this film kind of is it kind of does not have anything good going for it, except for Dr. Facilier, and I'll talk about him later. But I mean, when you look at Disney characters in their films, whether it's like The Lion King, whether it's Frozen, whether it's Moana, whether it's Snow White, whether it's any of the classic ones, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, there's a iconic cast of characters that people remember, whether it's Timon, whether it's Pumbaa, whether it's Maui, there's an iconic cast of characters in each film. And Princess and the Frog does not really have that. I mean, I would be hard pressed to even, I don't even remember. I think it's Louis the Lightbug, and I know it's the alligator, but I mean, I think anyone would be hard pressed to name who any of those characters are. Like, people would maybe be able to know Tiana. They would maybe be able to name Naveen. But then when you get into like Facilier, now they might be able to name 3 of the whole cast and maybe Mama Odie, but that's about it. Like, the cast is just, not only they're not just forgettable, but they're not really, it's not that they're annoying characters, but they're just not, I don't know, they just don't have anything going for them. Like, characters from other Disney films like Timon and Pumbaa. The contrast of them as a duo is enjoyable. Their banter, how they interact with all the other characters, it's enjoyable. Hakuna Matata, still to this day, an iconic song. And there's really none of that in this film. So the characters, by and large, excluding Tiana and Facilier, really doesn't have much going for it. So I think that's kind of one big problem with this film, is that like the characters aren't really that engaging, except for Dr. Facilier. I will say, and I have argued this for a very long time, that Dr. Facilier I believe he should be in the top echelon of Disney villains. I mean, from the way he looks, from the voice to the music to his song, everything about him is just fantastic. The way he presents himself, his voodoo history, his voodoo abilities, him wanting to take over the town, him making a pact with the, pretty much demons and like hell, pretty much in a sense. I think he's a great villain. He has that charming, sinister, just aura about him, where like you see him show up, he's up to no good, but he has that kind of disarmingly charming personality to him, where you could kind of see how he could kind of con someone into doing something, or how he could kind of manipulate people into doing something for him that, but advances his goals. So he's enjoyable, and still his song, I will argue with anybody, Friends on the Other Side, is one of the best, I would say, in the top 5, top 10. I would argue top 5 for me personally. It's in the top 5. I've listened to that song for the last 10 years That song is fantastic. And there's a remix on YouTube by a guy named Dave Wave who does like remixes of songs. I strongly recommend watching that remix. That is a fantastic remix of Friends on the Other Side. But that song is phenomenal. I love that song. I think that that song is right up there with Unfortunate Souls, Be Prepared. It's up there. I would count that as one of the best. So I will say at least the other positive of this is the villain. I mean, Doctor Facilier. He's not only a solid villain. I'd say he's a top 10, top 5 villain without question. And then I wish they had done more with him. I feel like it wasn't that he was underutilized per se, but he wasn't in the film as much as I would have liked. I wish and also he didn't really have much of a connection to Tiana. Like him and Tiana are kind of just it's like they have two separate plot lines going that just kind of happen to overlap at the end. Because if I'm remembering correctly, I don't even think Tiana's even aware. Like, I mean, I think she knows because Naveen mentions like he got turned into a frog by a shaman. But like Tiana and Facilier don't meet each other, or I don't even think they know each other until the very end. Like, I think the end of the film is when they first and last meet each other. There's no history. There's no built up conflict. There's no, like, contrasting ideologies that they're having to battle over. They just kind of meet up and then have their showdown, and then Facilier is defeated, and that's it. But, like, really, it's kind of fascinating because I don't know if there has been another Disney film where the main character and the villain have had no relationship, no interaction, and pretty much have like entirely different movies going on in the same movie. Where like what Facilier's doing really has nothing to do with Tiana. What Tiana's doing has nothing to really to do with Facilier. They're just going their own way, and it's kind of strange because pretty much every Disney film, the villain and the hero has some type of either personal relationship, or there's something that is connecting them together, or like there's a conflict that they have to deal with, whether it's a family issue, personal issue, the villain wants to take over something that the hero has, whatever it is. There's always some conflict that has the good guy and the bad guy having to have a conflict. And in this film, there really isn't that. And that's kind of strange. I don't know why they did that. I wish they had made it to where Facilier was somehow like directly like either a foil to Tiana, or maybe he like knew Tiana's family, or maybe he was the one that was responsible for her dad dying for some nefarious reason. I do wish there was more of that, because it is weird how these two characters, the protagonist and the villain, just pretty much act separate of each other and don't even know each other exist until the end of the film. That is a strange take for this. But the other positive for this film is the animation. The animation is amazing. And I mean, looking at this film even today, it holds up. I mean, really, I don't think any Disney film, I mean, even going all the way back to Snow White and Sleeping Beauty, even going to like, Beauty and the Beast, I really don't think any of these films have aged at all. And it's funny because all the remakes of these films, the live action ones, which I don't want to say Disney sees them as superior to their original counterparts, but you can kind of tell they have like, they at least had for a while, and I think they still have this like when we make it in a CG modern technology era, it's kind of upgraded. But funny enough, the films that have come out as remakes have aged worse. Like the remake of Aladdin has aged not bad, but it's aged worse than the one that came out in the 90s, late 80s. The Lion King that came out, the two of them, I mean, they look good, but they have aged, and they're going to keep aging worse than the animation. Because the thing about animation is it's timeless. I mean, you can watch a Looney Tunes short, or a Fleischer Studios short, or an animated movie from 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago. It holds up. It's not really dated. Like, you could maybe tell like some of the early films, but like they're really by and large pretty good. Like they don't have a poor aging quality to them, like a lot of live action films do, especially the ones that are like really heavy special effects. Like, 'cause special effects, they age quickly. Not that they look bad, but you look at films that came out 15, 16 years ago, and you're like, oh, that that CG is looking a bit rough nowadays. But you look at a film that was animated 60 years ago, and you're like, oh, that's solid. That looks good. Like, you might be able to tell it came out long time ago, but it's not like you look at it and you're like, oh my god, this film has aged terribly from like from an animation standpoint. So I will say the animation in this film is phenomenal, and I wish that Disney would go back to this because this film, I will say they did take a lot of time and effort into making the city and the environments feel like immersive, real places. And it has that detail that 2D animation has that you really can't get with almost any other medium. So I wish that they would go back to this, and then there's been talk that Disney might go back to having hand drawn animation. I personally, might be me being a nihilist, but I don't think that's going to happen. I don't see Disney going back to 2D. In fact, I see them probably just going full steam ahead with the CG. They have God knows how many sequels and reboots and whatever of every franchise and property they have that's going to be live action. So they're not going to stop that anytime soon. That's going to be a constant trend, unfortunately. But for this film, the animation is beautiful, and so that's a plus for this film that still holds up. And another thing about this film that I like is the music. Now, I mean, pretty much, music and Disney, they're an iconic duo. I mean, to have a Disney film that does not have music would be strange, would be oddly strange. It would almost feel like something is wrong in the cosmos if you did not have an animated Disney film without musicals. And I'd say by and large, the music in this film is solid. Almost There, great song. Friends on the Other Side, I mean, I've made my thoughts clear on that. Top 5, easy for me, villain songs. I'd say, hell, I might go as far as say it's in the top 10 for me of just Disney, animated songs in general. Then Mama Odie song, that's a good one. And really just the soundtrack in general, like it has that just authentic New Orleans vibe to it. Like you could tell they did a lot of research into making the music feel like it was from that time period that this film is set in, which I think it's the 20s. I think it's the 20s when this film was set. But you can definitely tell that they really took a lot of time into making the music of this film fit for this era. And I think that the music is fantastic. I love it. So yeah, the music stands up. But when it comes to Princess and the Frog as a film, it's kind of strange because it's really just been kind of left behind. What I mean by that is pretty much even going back in the day, like, we talk about sequels as a problem, but I mean, back in the day with Aladdin and like, I think maybe Snow White, I think Snow White never got a sequel officially, but pretty much almost every Disney film, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, Moana, Frozen, they've all gotten numerous sequels and spin-offs and reboots and TV shows and one-offs and Christmas specials and holiday specials. And Princess and the Frog has really had nothing. And I think that's also part of why this film is not forgotten, but just is kind of faded because Disney has done an astounding lack of nothing with this film. Like, I mean, they haven't done anything. They haven't done any specials or anything to my knowledge. Tiana, like she shows up, but she really only shows up like out of obligation. Like she made a cameo in Wreck-It Ralph. She made a cameo in the Once Upon a Time once that short they did for Disney's 100-year anniversary. She showed up in that, and a few other characters did. But like there hasn't been like, you look at Frozen, there's been like, God, how many fucking Olaf spin-offs and whatever. Moana has a live action film and a sequel that came out. Like, they go pretty overboard with all of their animated films. And that's not a new thing. That's been a thing they've done for like 30 years. They've been doing this for a while. But for some reason, Princess and the Frog, they've just done nothing with. It's been 15 years since this film came out, and I'm hard pressed to think of anything that's come out. Like they haven't done a show or a spinoff. Like the closest we got is they removed the Splash Mountain and made a Tiana ride or a Princess and the Frog ride. And now maybe this is me just sounding overly cynical, but I feel like that was just a PR move. Because the perception of Splash Mountain and Song in the South is it's this problematic, racist film, and everything associated to it is, by extension, racist and offensive. And so they replace it with their one and only black character to kind of, have brownie points of, hey, look at how progressive we are. We tossed the black character. We got, the one black princess and the one movie of her we tossed it in there saying, hey, look at that, how forward thinking we are as a company. But other than that, they had the TV show that they were going to make, and I'm going to be honest, I was actually kind of excited. I was curious to see what they would do because I know one thing. I know this for sure. If they do, because I'm going to be honest, I don't know if they will do anything else for Princess and the Frog. If they do anything else, I will know this for certain. They will not have her as a frog because, my God, the unholy fucking hellfire that would come down on Disney if they made Tiana a fucking frog for the majority of a show or a movie. Oh my God, that would be just hellfire raining down. The PR backlash would be insane from that. So I know that they're not going to do that. So if we do get a sequel, I will look forward to that. That we'll at least have Tiana for the first time and her own project be a person, a human being, for the entirety of the film, which I would look forward to. But going back to the original, I guess since it's been out 15 years, like what what is the legacy of this film? I guess because it is significant for Disney, especially because it's the first Black princess. It's the first, really, their first Black film. I guess you could count Soul, but that's Pixar. But I guess by proxy, Disney owns Pixar, so you could kind of say. But I don't know. I don't count. No, that's a technicality. I wouldn't count that. I mean, pretty much this is the only Black film, Black princess. And I don't know, this might sound strange, but I don't know if it even has a legacy. Because there wasn't like a period post Princess and the Frog where Disney started to make a whole lot of different types of Black princesses, or doing different African cultures or Nigerian cultures, or anything. It's not like Princess and the Frog being released and Tiana being the first made a present for like following characters. They've really not done anything as a follow up, but then at the same time they have made a lot of different minorities for like princesses and things like that. You think of like Moana, and things like that. So they have made more like different racially diverse characters since Tiana and Princess and the Frog, but they haven't done another Black film or another Black princess or anything like that, which is it's strange. I mean, I guess maybe the box office performance kind of scared them away because there was that mindset for a long time that like if you have a Black product, it's not going to do well in the box office, and if it's overseas, it's just going to fucking bomb abysmally. That was the shock with Black Panther, and that was the film that kind of proved like, oh, yeah, you can have a pretty much a entirely to mostly Black cast with a Black director, and it can make a whole lot of fucking money. Granted, that was part of Marvel, and yeah, I mean, there's a few things connected to it, but nonetheless, like the fact that it was a Black film with a Black director, a lot of Black talent working on it, and they were able to make that insane historic success, proves that. But funny enough, Black Panther came out way after Princess and the Frog and had nothing to do with Princess and the Frog. I mean, you could argue that Black Panther has done more for like Black entertainment and Black creators than anything. Not anything, but like as far as like making like a present for like having more, like because Ryan Coogler went on to make Sinners, which universally loved, and went on to make Black Panther 2. He's doing a few other things. So that film has had more of like a continuing impact in making a landscape for diverse creators to have different projects, specifically black creators. But also at the same time, this film doesn't have a negative legacy. Like it's not like this film is looked back on like a Song of the South or a film like that where it's like viewed as problematic or negative. It's just kind of like people, they have a criticism of Tiana being a frog for most of it, but it really just it doesn't have really a legacy either way. Like it's not negatively received. It's not overly or even mildly positively received, and it's not talked about. And there's been nothing from it for 15 years. So it's just kind of like there. I mean, it's really this is you could kind of look at Princess and the Frog as like they're kind of strangely forgotten film. There's like they're forgotten princess almost like Snow White, which came out 80 years ago, which I mean, I know Snow White's a bit different because, that's like, the poster child besides like Mickey Mouse of like Disney, the first, their films. But like, there are films that have come out, like 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago that are more relevant today than anything in Princess and the Frog. And then likewise, Disney has done absolutely nothing with this series, this franchise. And the show that they were going to do, they killed that. And the ride that replaced Splash Mountain, I've heard that's just been an abysmal disaster. And then, other than that, I mean, they're not making a sequel, and they're not in a rush to even make a live action film. Like I was assuming that they would at least be hurrying to make a live action film, but even with Disney being on their just hyper obsessive remake every single product we have, Princess and the Frog has not even been there hasn't even been like a rumor of it. And to be honest, this might be Princess and the Frog might be like dead to last, the last animated project that gets a remake. I'm actually thinking this might be next to last of the only things they have left before they have nothing else. I mean, I'll have more films by that point, but as far as like established films, this might be the last before like, this might be the dead last. Like they're really digging at the very end of the bag to see what they can kind of pull out to make as a remake. And I think also that kind of ties into I can't remember how this performed at the box office. I don't think it did overly negative. I think it was a disappointment. I think so. Maybe that's why it didn't perform as well. So there's kind of stigma of like, well, it didn't do that well at the box office. So we're not really that inclined to be doing anything else because the one thing about Disney is they only really remake projects that are universally beloved and made a lot of money. Lilo and Stitch, Aladdin, Lion King, Dumbo, Snow White, Pinocchio, iconic classics, made a lot of money. They, like Treasure Island. You don't hear them talking about doing a Treasure Island remake. Didn't make any money back then and doesn't have the universal love and praise like, the other classics do. So they aren't even thinking about that. And I think Princess and the Frog is kind of in that same basket where they're just kind of like, it didn't make any money, doesn't have much of a, like, I don't think anyone has, like, I mean, maybe a few people do. I'm sure there's people out there, but as far as like The Lion King, like, there's people who weren't even born when The Lion King came out that, like, today have a fondness and a nostalgic fondness for The Lion King and classic Disney films. And with Princess and the Frog, I just don't think that there is anything like that. I mean, I know for some people there is, and I know especially for like minority groups. I'm sure there are people who are like, it was memorable to have someone that looked like them to be on screen, and they can relate to it. But like as far as like a universal audience, like the general audience, I don't think there is. I mean, I think against like with a lot of black people, I don't think there is like a nostalgia for this film. I think they're just kind of like, oh, that film that came out like a while ago, that's it. They don't really like. I think people have more of a fondness for like a Black Panther, which only came out like 6 or 7 years ago. Have more of a fondness for that than they do for Princess and the Frog, which is just crazy that this film just has an indifferent legacy. And maybe that's a unique that's not maybe that is a unique situation because I can't think of a single Disney film that has this type of reception or just perception of nothing. Like, even the films that people dislike, at least they dislike it. But this film, they don't even like or dislike it. It's just kind of there. And people just are like, whatever. And it's just, that's kind of just fascinating that this film has that. Because I can't think of another Disney film or really any film almost like that has that kind of indifference that people have to it, which is just fascinating. But yeah, there's not much else to say really, I guess, when it comes to Princess and the Frog. But I'll be curious to see if they'll, if and what, because I'm gonna be honest, Princess and the Frog. This is one. It's not even a franchise, but like a film. This is one film that I'm actually not too sure if we will get anything after this. It might be another 10 years before we get another Princess and the Frog anything. So I'll be curious to see what they do if they do anything. I hope they do. Um, oh, I will say this though. The one thing I was vying for, and I hoped for this in Kingdom Hearts 3, and I have a 0.1% chance of this happening. It probably won't, but I hope it does. And I talked about this in my Kingdom Hearts video. I hope someone, please, anyone, I don't know, I don't care who it is, can get a petition. Hell, I'll start it. Make a petition to have either Tiana in Princess and the Frog as a world in Kingdom Hearts 4, or to at least have Tiana and the characters like they did with the princesses and the other ones, to have her as a character. I need this to happen. I need to have, at the very least, Dr. Facilier as a boss, not just a generic, like as a main boss in a Princess and the Frog world, using Voodoo Shadow Heartless with a villainous rendition of Friends on the Other Side as an instrumental as the music. I need that to happen. I need that to happen. It probably won't, but dear God, though, I would be ecstatic for that. I would excuse a lot of anything bad in Kingdom Hearts 4 if they do that. I hope so. So I hope that happens. I was hoping maybe because I played Kingdom Hearts 3 late. I played it way after it came out, and I held out hope till the end of the game that maybe there'll be like an Easter egg for Tiana or Naveen or Facilier, and it never happened. So I'm hoping maybe Kingdom Hearts 4, because if it's not 4, I don't think it's gonna ever happen. But with that said, that last bit of a tangent out, I think I'm a call today here. I think I've spoken, more enough about good old Princess and the Frog. So until next time, I will see you good people later.